here, guys. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the weekly lunch meeting of the Rotary Club of Barrie. Things go better when you are here. We will begin our meeting in our traditional fashion with Rotary invocation, O Canada, which we are going to sing today, and a toast to the Queen. Please remove your hats, stand if you are able to. For good food, for good friends, and for the opportunity to provide service above self through Rotary, we are thankful. And please unmute your microphones and proudly sing.
Home and make time to in our songs command. God for thee. Gloria.
That was fantastic, Club. Well done. Thank you. To the Queen. Please be seated. Our Beacon editor this week is Graham Mallory. Thank you, Graham. And thank you for jumping in at the last moment. If you have an announcement, please forward them to Graham for inclusion in the minutes. And Brandon, thank you, I think, for last week's Beacon and the very critical review of my first meeting. I'm pretty sure that we will come talk to you later on today about your harsh reporting of my leadership. I'll now call upon the membership to introduce any guests that we may have. We have any guests with us here? Doesn't look like it. No.
Yes, we have a guest. We've got Bonnie and Adelaide here, guests of mine. They're just indisposed at home.
That's right. Thank you, Mikey. And I think Sergeant at Arms Lars wants to introduce one who doesn't want to be.
President
I'm not
Jody,
going.
We have Bruce the dog as a guest today.
Great. We're off to a rocket start. Welcome to our guests, Bonnie and Adelaide. You guys are always welcome. Thanks for being here today. And Bruce, there we go. I want to just provide a quick update to the club and thank everybody for all of the feedback and information that I have received from our breakout room chat last week. It is very apparent that there is a want for more information and education. Your board will discuss and report back to the club shortly. In a related and very timely manner, Kyle Campbell informed me just yesterday that he has volunteered with the district to take on the task of presenting the Water First project to our club on September 2nd. So thank you for stepping up for that, Kyle, and we look forward to that presentation. Last week, I shared some of the things that we have planned for the year. This week, I am introducing a revised version of our mini classifications with a bit of a twist. What I have planned is an opportunity for some of our newer Rotarians to get to know some of our seasoned Rotarians a bit better and share that with the club. Oh, and yeah, they're going to do it live. So with that, I would like to ask Tanya Sari and Peter Smith to come to the stage, please.
So my name is Tanya. I'm a newer member of Rotary, as you know, and I've been asked to interview a seasoned member of Rotary. So thank you, Peter. And I guess my first question is, how long have you been a Rotarian for?
Tanya, 49 years, 7 months, 3 days.
Oh, that's specific. It was 1972, right?
Correct.
The year I was born.
I wasn't going to say that, but I thought it.
So I've experienced a lot of things in my lifetime, and I'm sure you've experienced a lot of things in Rotary. What would be one of your fondest memories you've had in Rotary?
Oh, dear me, fondest memory. You did give me some warning to think about this. You know, I thought there's so many fond moments. I can't really outline any. There go your question.
That's okay, I got it in my head.
We'll circle back to that. Maybe I'll think of something.
Okay, and then why did you join Rotary? We should have started with that, I guess. What made you join Rotary?
Nothing made me join. I moved to Barrie in 1971. I met a neighbor who had similar interests to me. He was a Rotarian. He asked me to join. I thought it would be uncivilized not to, so I did.
Nice. Is a friend still in Rotary?
No, he's passed away,
Oh,
sadly.
Questions don't want to be asked. So I know we did your fondest memory and you're thinking about it. Would it be easier to say, what was a challenge in Rotary? Is there any time in Rotary where you went, oh, I don't want to do that again?
No, but I gotta say, when I joined, most of the members were really old. Most of them were Second World War veterans, and they were no nonsense gentlemen. It was a little scary. I was the youngest person in Rotary. There you go.
A little intimidating then, right?
A little intimidating, yeah.
Do you want to circle back to your fondest memory?
No, not yet.
Oh, all right, then you give me a difficult time.
Oh, yeah.
That's Peter.
So let's skip to the question. I don't know if you wanted me to ask or not. What advice do you have for President Jody going into his year as a president of Rotary?
Well, yes, I thought about that one. And, you know, I've seen, what, 49 presidents, and they're all unique. They all have their own style. They've all been good, some better than others. But I wouldn't proffer any advice at all, because you just have to do your own thing, hang in there, and remember one thing, the whole club's got your back. So you can do almost no wrong. Almost no wrong.
Almost.
Keyword. Perfect.
There you go.
That's great advice, right?
Absolutely.
All right, we got to circle back, Peter, because I only had 5 questions. So we got to go back.
Well, think of some more.
Let me see. What else about Rotary? We did. Have you ever traveled with Rotary? Because I know when I spoke to Arlette, she's done a lot of traveling with
Oh,
Rotary.
yeah,
So
I have
what
done
have
that.
you- And where have you been?
Well, let me think. And Kenya comes to mind first of all. 2 weeks in Kenya? That was very interesting. Didn't manage to get dysentery or malaria, which is good. Came back in one piece. Very eye-opening. Learned a lot, an awful lot, quite frankly. People's preconceived notions about helping the third world. Not always so good. But anyway, I'm waxing on too much here, so.
No, it's good because I love to hear those sorts of experiences. I didn't realize we could travel. Do you want to answer the final one of a good memory? Because this is our last. We're going to get the cane to the neck in a second to get pulled off the stage.
I'll think of that one. I'll give you a written reply someday.
Okay, so written report to come in the future if that's okay.
Awesome.
All right.
That it?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
I'll help you down. Peter, good.
Peter and Tanya, thank you for that. And folks, what we're trying to do here, obviously, we have a pretty rich history here. And as Peter said, when he joined the club in 1972, we were old. The more things change, the more they stayed the same, I suppose. But there's a lot of history, a lot of things that we've done here. And we've had a gap for 1.5 years. And we're taking it upon ourselves to just try and share some of that history to help everybody, myself included, learn more about our incredible club. So that was great, guys. Thank you. Birthdays and anniversaries, Jeff. We just have one of each this week. Former last year's Sergeant at Arms, young Eric Dean, is celebrating a birthday July 18th. And celebrating 36 years of wedded bliss are Stu and Sandy McMillan. Congratulations, guys. A donation to our club's Polio Plus eradication campaign will be made in your name. Jeff?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear fellow. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you for that rockin' version, Dave. Your rock and roll one last week was a little more upbeat, but that's a little more subdued. We love it. Keep on with the guitar. So I'm going to ask Club Treasurer Chris Van Niekerk to come forward for a minute. We're going to briefly share a little bit of our budgets and spending monies this year. You've all been to your committee meetings, hopefully. You've seen the money that we have, and we're going to talk to that for a little bit here. We don't have a ton of time, but we're going to share that. So Chris, if you'd come on up, please.
Okay, thanks, President Jody, and hello, my fellow Rotarians. Jeff, if you don't mind just sharing. Perfect. Okay, thanks. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on the left side of the page. I'm going to get more into the right side, but you know, Chris talked about our events last week. What I wanted to share on the left side, which is our events and our fundraising, and I have a lot of optimism with these events. No, you know, we lost Kempen Fest this year, but we're going to get Wheels for Wellness. I think we'll probably get it twice, along with, you know, we expect all the other ones to come in. What I really want to share is in past presidents Deb's year, we really built a foundation on some of these things. You know, we have the marketplace. We've learned how to do these events virtually, and we're coming out of COVID. And I really think that with these events, we're just going to blow them out of the water. I think it's going to be an excellent year, us coming out of COVID and what we did in past president Deb's year. On the spending side, on the right side, what we did on the budget is we kept it the same as last year. It's very conservative. Community service is 29,000 this year. That's up from 25,000 last year. Environmental, vocational, international, they all stayed the same. In public relations, it's down a little bit. Sorry about that, Jonathan. We have a float where we'll determine where we need it. Last year, we used it to pay our long-term commitments. And you can see our long-term commitments down at the bottom there. The payments are expected to be the same as what it was last year. So that's our budget. We think it's ultra conservative. We don't think it's going to stay this way. But again, it's dependent on how our events do, which again, I have a lot of optimism for. So that's our budget for this year.
There's a question of how.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chris. And Jenny, you had a great question. The Halloween is supposed to be on there. I was asked to send that to Chris, and I put that in my don't forget file and forgot. So that's on me. So the Halloween event absolutely will be added there. And the message, Chris said it, and I'm going to say it a little more bluntly. Those numbers are low. They're conservative. We followed Deb's numbers, past President Deb's numbers. They're low for a reason. That's not where we're going to be. We're moving forward, as we all know, and we're going to have a chance to do what we normally generate. And so we went low on the mindset of I'd rather come hand more money out than say give it back in. So that's where we went. The board's been in on this since we launched it. And ultimately, it's going to be up to what we're allowed to do, but to all of us to make these numbers be where they should be, so we can do what we normally do. So thanks for that, Chris. All right. So recently, I read a very interesting article that listed some of the things that we as individuals could do to help make the world a better place. That sounded a lot like what we as Rotarians do every day. So I thought, how can I use that message at a lunch meeting? So I'm going to give this a whirl. One of the suggestions was to share positivity. That was a pretty easy one. Just last week, PR Director Jonathan Derrick asked us all to share our club's good news, posts, tweets, and pics via our social media accounts. Most of the news that we receive on a daily basis is negative or worse. So sharing the excellent work of Rotary and our good deeds will surely brighten someone's day. Another suggestion was stop polluting the water. We have just been briefly introduced to a project that will target clean and safe water for communities that are right next door to ours, not thousands of miles away. That effort alone will change many lives for the better. Another suggestion was reconsider your eating habits. Do you know where your food comes from? What exactly are you eating? Well, we can have a positive effect here also. So sing along here if you want, folks. Jeff? We're going somewhere with this.
You know, well, I'm a chicken fried and cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio. Well, I was raised up beneath the shade of a Georgia pine, and that's home, you know. Sweet tea, pecan pie, and homemade wine, where the peaches grow. In my house, it's not much to talk about, but it's filled when love is grown in southern ground, and a little bit of chicken fried.
So with that, you may have picked up that there's a theme here. I would like to introduce to the club a new project that we have created. It is called the First Lady Fundraiser. And here to help us launch it is Paula.
Thank you, President Jody. Just so everybody knows, he makes me call him that at home too. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure to meet, I am Jody's partner, Paula. I am happy to introduce this Farm to Table fundraiser. This is very near and dear to me, as I grew up living off the land and working it, which I did not appreciate as a kid, to help my family put food on our table and our community. 100% of the proceeds raised by this fundraiser will go towards the ongoing cost of your Rotary Garden and your Community Service Committee. The first part of this project, if the first part of this project goes well, we will pick other local farms throughout the year to bring you and your family healthy proteins and produce, maybe even some recipes along the way. So there are two parts. First, we are going to sell farm fresh frozen whole chickens. All chickens are free run, grain fed, no hormones, no antibiotics, and no saltwater injections to add weight, which unfortunately is not the case with most animal protein that you purchase at your local grocery store. Yes, even if it says organic. These chickens will be available on the club marketplace in size range between 6 to 10 pounds. Yes, they are large. Purchase price will be $6 per pound. Profit to the Rotary Club is $2 per pound. These will be, and that's on your marketplace. And then the second and ongoing step will be selling farm fresh, free run brown eggs, which will be available every week. Exact selling price of the eggs will be determined by next week, but should profit around $2.50 per dozen. And they will probably be available on marketplace. Probably. So to leave you, I have a few fun facts about eggs. Eggs last 8 to 10 weeks without being refrigerated. Once they have been refrigerated, they must remain there. Eggs you buy in the grocery store are typically already about a month old. Hens lay an egg every 1 to 2 days. Older eggs are easier to peel. A darker yolk means your chicken had a healthier diet. The whites and the yolks of your egg have the same amount of protein. If you have older eggs in your fridge and you're not sure if they're still good, put them in a glass of water. If they float, they're done. And lastly, the one that I taught Jody in one of our first conversations we ever had, an egg can never become a chicken unless the rooster gets into the hen pen.
Thank you for that, Paula. And there were certainly a lot of F's in there, and the F that I was concerned about and am for this entire year wasn't one of them. So you did a great job with that. So we're trying something a little different here, folks. It should be fun. And as Paula said, on the marketplace and a weekly ongoing opportunity with the eggs. And I will say there's a great chance here for our Traeger crew, for Carrie, for Paul, for Todd and myself to make absolutely the best spatchcock chicken that you've ever made on your smokers, and for the rest of the club to make a fantastic beer can chicken. So more details will come on that quickly. And finally, I read the points of volunteer and plant a garden. These were the easiest ones to connect. As you all know, past community service chair and club secretary, or pardon me, treasurer Chris ran the committee last year. We have planted a garden, an incredible garden that is just down the road from here. that will feed several families right here in Barrie. In fact, it is such a beautiful location that I thought, what a perfect spot for us to meet in person in a large group and have a Rotary meeting. So with tomorrow's expected move, which will put us into stage 3, I am thrilled to announce that next week, July 22nd, we will host our meeting in person at Rotary Garden, where we can have 100 people with proper distancing and protocols in place. However, we can meet together as one group. That is so exciting. Now, to help us coordinate this, Jeff is going to put up a little poll on the screen. If you can just, simple as you can read it, let us know if you plan on attending. This doesn't lock you in, but it gets us an idea of what we need to do for tracking and monitoring and whatnot. So if you can take a second and fill that out and send it back to the, send it back, and we'll have an update from that. Emails will come out on this as we go in the next few days, but I think it's pretty phenomenal that we have a chance to be together, which is just great. So we'll give that another couple of seconds. Not a lot of choice for answers. I'm hoping there's only one choice. Anyways, if you want to pull that down, Jeff. And additionally, there will be an opportunity for us to volunteer next Thursday, literally getting our hands dirty. After the meeting, performing some weeding, cleanup, maintenance, etc. Details will follow on that. So next Thursday, we're together at Rotary Garden. Details will follow. The only announcement that I have is from past President Deb related to our conference, district conference. If you're with us, Deb, still, there you are.
I am. Yep. Thank you, President Jody. That sounds awesome. Yeah, we are actually going to be doing the district conference in person this year. So again, normalcy is coming back, in person is coming back. You can register, easy website, District 7010 Conference gets you right there. They are encouraging that you have your double vaccinations. It's going to be fully compliant. It does run September 10th to 12th. There is golf at Spruce Needles, plus a dinner the day before on the Thursday. So let's get out there. Let's support District Governor Steve Meadley. He's awesome. He's come and supported us a lot last year, and he's got a lot of plans and great things going forward into this year. Lots of fun things. I've already signed up for the target shooting. So that is definitely going to be fun. Anytime you can put a gun in this environment is kind of fun to shoot away. ATV riding, boat tour, the Mattagami River, trail walks, let's see, brewery tours, lots of stuff going on, and a great time just to get out and meet other Rotarians, be out with Rotarians, be out, be social, and just get out and remember what it's like to have fun and bring Rotary all back together. So back to you, President Jody.
Thanks, past President Deb. And folks, that's fantastic. The district every year puts a ton of work into the conference, and this one they've ultimately had the better part of 2 years to plan for. And we as a club have always had a very strong presence with the district, but in the last little while we've I don't say slipped, but maybe not had the representation from the club level that we should have. We're very fortunate to have Dave and Wayne have key roles as treasurer and secretary with the district. So that's amazing. But as a club, if you can make it up to that event, it'll be a great time to have a nice crew of us up there. You will get lots of stuff, lots of opportunities for fellowship and learning and experiencing some pretty interesting stuff. And correct, I called Wayne district treasurer. He's better than that. He is a finance chair. So Wayne, your job's even better than I described it. So well done. And since we are way ahead of my schedule here, when I planned this out, I thought I was going to be close to 1 o'clock, and we're nowhere near 1 o'clock. So I'm going to start talking a little bit slower. And with that segue, I think would be the appropriate time to bring up Sergeant at Arms and see what Lars has to say. But before you do, my friend,
Oh, for the love of
if I may, at least hold it. You don't have to wear it.
Can I fashion it into a turban maybe at some point? I don't know.
There we go. Lars, you're up.
President Jody, El Presidente Jody, and my marvelous fellow Rotarians and guests. Hope everybody is well today. President Jody, before I get into it, I have a couple things with you. Firstly, my understanding from talking to Paul is that lesson 2 about chicken sex education is coming next week. And we'll have a Zoom meeting about that so everybody can join in and learn more about chickens, birds, and bees. Now, as you may know, on Facebook, President Jody, we have a Facebook internal facing group where we can comment and banter back and forth. And yesterday, or the day before yesterday, perhaps, President Jody put up a nice comment talking about the amazing meeting that we've got planned today, and it's going to be spectacular. And he said, SAA Larry promises to be funny this week. Now, I never made any such promise, so I throw at your feet the 4-way test and offer to fine you, with your consent, $5.
Sergeant at Arms Larry, I spent a year trying to find a way to make that happen. You can find me whatever you want, or at least propose it. I'm not sure how far it's going to get, but so far your promise to not deliver humor, you're keeping it. So yes, it is the truth.
Is it building goodwill? I think not.
Club seems to be smiling and
Yeah.
enjoying it. So where do you want to go with this, my friend?
Well, I'll see a show of hands. Who's up for Jody paying a $5 fine for forcing me to try and be funny? Brandon's up there with both hands. Push up the roof, my friends. Push up the roof. Now, Trevor, young Trevor, online, I believe. Trevor was to have done the beacon last week, and Brendan did a fantastic job. But Trevor, can you please give us any sort of explanation or almost obscene rationalization as to why you didn't do the beacon last week?
Unfortunately, I was at work, but being a good Rotarian, I decided to give it to the good guy Brandon over there, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah, he did a great job, but don't deflect the question. What time of day did you give that to him on Thursday?
Oh, it was early. It was
At least 11:55?
Yeah, he had lots of time.
Yeah. So, Mr. Stinginess about fines, President Jody, can you please let me know what your thoughts are on a fine for young Trevor?
I would love to, Sergeant at Arms Larry. So first off, I think we made a point last week of kind of laying down the law. So not addressing the chair and insubordination. So I'm going to fine you $2 for that insult, and trying to fine me $5. So you might be up to 7, but we'll leave it at 2. And I think Trevor needs to start off with a toonie for not addressing the chair. I'm kind of enjoying this here, this little power trip. This is going to work well. But you know what, Trevor, Brandon called me in a panic last week, wondering what was happening, and he didn't know what to do. So I reached out to you, and you said you'd passed it on to him. So we made a lot of money last week. So the coffers at Sergeant at Arms are in good shape. What do you think about a different fine? What do you think if we find a different type of monetary value to fine Trevor first off?
Fine Trevor? Well, I think Trevor's in the food service industry, correct? Can you explicate your food service position?
I don't do much there. I just cook a couple French fries. That's about it, though.
Some product placement, perhaps?
Yep, maybe.
I think there's a lot of people, younger people, perhaps not me, because I don't honestly need the calories, but there's a number of people in the community who would love to have a Happy Meal. I think. Do you think you could find your way through to a few given to those in need?
Yeah, for sure. As long
Yeah.
as it doesn't.
What's the number you're thinking about, President Jody?
Well, let's go easy on Trevor, because I think there's a fair chance we'll talk to Trevor more than once this year. So Trevor, how about maybe 3 Happy Meals, and then I'll task our community service to find somewhere to just quietly distribute those as a start. What do you think?
That sounds great. We can do that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Now we need to go to the other half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Brendan, are you
Yes,
unmuted,
that's it.
sir? Yeah, no, it was a fantastic beacon. I laughed until I stopped laughing. Your beacon, however, was filled with some really significant jabs at our fearless leader. And it concerned me to the point that this might rupture the tight unit that is the Rotary Club of Barrie. Can you please explicate?
Well, I mean, essentially, you're like a journalist, right? And I don't want to take personal opinions into it. I just had to do the most honest, unbiased write-up.
Yeah.
Professional approach.
Well, based upon the utter lack of respect for the club president, I would suggest maybe, and in the spirit of different sort of fines, because we don't want to lean on the pocketbooks of Rotarians so much. So maybe if we could, and I'll do this with you, if President Jody allows, maybe 10 push-ups might be in order.
Let me understand here. So I agree, fining Brandon a couple of bucks isn't going to do anything. So we're going to have Brandon do a push-up or 10 push-ups, and you're going to do 10.
And I'm going to do them at the same time.
All right, club, do we want to see this? Probably not. This is not Markle and Tucky and sumo suits wrestling, but if you're going to drop and give us 10,
all right,
Brandon, you in?
Brandon, here we go, my brother.
Hit the ground. This is going to be enthralling video. Nobody's going to be able to see this.
And I want people to count them off for us, please.
Can I do them like off my desk or?
I got 10 bucks.
Okay. We're gonna give the shoulder a real test here then.
I'm in the same boat. I had shoulder surgery in 2018.
Okay, I gotta do a little prep here and get it.
I didn't know this was going to be a whole thing, Brendan.
Neither did I. Okay, I'd say that's gonna work. Okay.
All right, here we go. Count down, folks. 1, 2,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I don't like where my good friend Paul Markle's eyes were while I was doing push-ups. Now, Mike and Bonnie and Adelaide are, I believe, at Peter's gorgeous boardroom table. Am I correct?
Yes, that's where we
Oh,
are.
lovely, lovely. Now, Secretary Jeff, could you pull up the picture?
Do we need to take a timeout and let you get your breath back, Sergeant Armsler?
Probably. Now, speaking of Rotarian Paul off to the side here, if we recall a couple of years ago, Paul and Todd were involved with some sumo wrestling. And I think we can do a redo here because it looks like Mike is kind of getting his butt handed to him by his infant daughter. Mike, can you explain the circumstances around this?
Jody, I'm not sure what I can say, but she's already got me beat at what, 9 months? Almost 10 months now. And
Yeah.
It's a losing battle already for me.
And as I'm hearing around the room for messages and comments, that's not going to be the last time that she hands your butt to you over the course of the next 50 or 60 years.
Yes, I'm expecting that.
Now, let's talk about the failure to address the chair for a sec, can we?
I did say President Jody.
I don't think you.
Did you hear that?
I absolutely heard that. I think that's another $2 to Sergeant Arms Larry for not paying attention.
I wasn't paying attention because I'm still huffing and puffing from my 11 push-ups. Clearly, I can't count as well. Now we've got one letter to Lars that we'd like to take a glance at, if we can. I'll read this to you. Dear SAA Lars, congratulations on taking on the honor of being President Jody's Sergeant at Arms. As longtime Rotarians, we have seen many President SAA combinations and bring you a cautionary tale. We have noticed that both you and President Jody have full, rich, luxuriant heads of hair. As you can see in the attached photo, the jobs of President and SAA can have a significant impact on your hairline. I implore you and President Jody to both take whatever steps necessary to decrease the stresses placed upon you by your role so you can keep your handsome locks. Failing that, just embrace the inevitable and join the club. Yours in four-way testimony, DM, JL, and ED. And they attach this picture too. There we are. There's three handsome guys, both of who have, all three of whom have stood behind this podium. Well, so I presume the DM would be past President Dave McCullough, and ED would have been past SAA Eric Dean, and JL would have been past SAA John Laking. And thank you very much, gentlemen. I can't say that President Jody, he's a young fella, is losing the hair, but my hairline is moving slowly but surely backwards, and I expect by June 30th of next year that I will be calling the Rogaine folks on a regular basis. And there's one other thing that I did want to talk about a little bit. It's not such a great news story, but it's a good news story. It's a great news story in some ways, but somber in other ways. Is Greg McWatt on the line? Yes. Greg, can you unmute for a quick sec?
I'm unmuted. Hello.
Hey, Greg, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. President Jody, you're doing a great job.
See, I clearly heard President Jody.
Yeah, and Larry, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
He's a past president. He'll get it right.
Oh, yeah. Greg, I was passing by your veterinary clinic in the South End, and I saw a new addition bolted to the front wall. Can you please explain what that is?
Well, you probably know more about it than I do, but because I wasn't conscious when it was put on my chest. But it is a defibrillator that's been placed there. A group of gentlemen from our hockey team had a fundraiser and raised quite a bit of money, and they've actually placed 2 of those units. And I was lucky enough to offer Baywood South Animal Hospital at 205 Manette's Point as a option for placement of the defibrillator, just in case.
That's fantastic. So everybody be aware of where the save stations and defibrillators are in the community. And just as a personal bit of pride, these the save station there, the one at the pharmacy in Midhurst, were placed in memory of Randy Boyle, who is the late beloved husband of my very dear Sharon. So thank you, Greg, for doing that. I wouldn't suggest a fine would be appropriate here, but I suggest a round of applause for Greg's largesse and willingness to put this together.
Thank you.
And with that, I've got nothing further, President Jody. Sayonara Club.
Well done, Sergeant Arms Larry. And I will just throw some kudos into you there, because you had a big part of spearheading that initiative also. You and I talked about it, and I may have the numbers wrong. I think the goal was 1, and you guys raised enough funds for how many?
They originally said the goal for Sharon in the fundraising effort was $4,000, and she was past $4,000 in about an hour and a half. And then they raised it to 12, and so she got up to about 11 or close to 12. And then, as Greg said, the hockey team that Randy played for, that Greg plays for, that Kyle Campbell plays for, they put together about $6,000 that they added. So it was just a phenomenal show of generosity on their part.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. And just to be clear, Kyle is a part of that hockey team. He doesn't play hockey. So, and folks, I told you last week that a whole lot of work goes into the planning and preparation of this, and we just completely proved that that was nothing but a lie. We're making it up as we go, hoping that it works and not sure what's happening. So thanks for your patience here with us today. So I think our speaker, we're a couple of minutes early. Dale, are you with us yet?
I am. Hello, folks.
Yeah. Fantastic. Dale, okay, we'll look forward to meeting you in a second. And if I could call upon birthday boy, former Sergeant at Arms, Eric Dean, to introduce Dale Boyle today from Safer Spaces, please.
Thanks, President Jody, and welcome, Dale. Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce Dale as our speaker for the day. I'm going to go a little bit just off the cuff. I do know that that Dale's been with Safer Spaces since it was launched in 2015. I do know that he's a business administration grad from Georgian, both their internal program and their the VA program. And I met Dale through a couple of sessions that he did for us at RVH. He made presentations to our leadership group on at least one, maybe two occasions, and to the RVH auxiliary. And really the purpose of Safer Spaces is to help better understand the LGBTQ plus community and create both better business welcoming and diversity and inclusion from a staffing perspective, but also from a customer focused perspective. For RVH, that was essential for us to better understand how to welcome folks from different orientations and different backgrounds, because it really can be a medical crisis situation. And a number of the LGBTQ community are uncomfortable in medical spaces because of past experience. So it was really important for us, and we love the way Dale presented the information. He really only has time to do a bit of an intro and overview for us, but if you're interested and you see some stuff in Dale's presentation, I know they do longer workshops, staff focused for education as well. So with that, I will pass it over to Dale.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Eric. And if I heard correctly, it's also your birthday. So happy birthday. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. And thanks for spending it with us and introducing me. In order to help facilitate some of our time, if it's all right with the room, I'm going to share my screen. So I'm just going to have a quick confirmation if folks can see my screen at this time. Yes. Okay, great. Perfect. So I'm going to encourage that if folks want to engage throughout, you are welcome to do so. However, I will be allocating specific amounts of time at the end so we can have more open Q&A discussion. If you need something, unmute, throw it in chat, but we will create time and space at the end. And as Eric said, we're only going to be really just scratching the surface. I'm going to try and give you some tangible pieces that we can take away and move forward from today with a couple of pieces of knowledge and contextual understanding, but this is really just starting that conversation. I do see a number of familiar faces and names around the room, so it's so wonderful to see you again. And for those who I have not had the pleasure of meeting before, a very quick introduction. Hello, my name is Dale Boyle. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the Safer Spaces Program Manager, and as Eric shared, I've been with the program since 2015. My contact information is on the screen. I'll provide it later, but I'm sure many of you know how to get a hold of me, so I'm just going to move forward from the housekeeping a little bit. As Eric shared, Safer Spaces, we provide organizational assessments, professional development workshops, and consultation services, all to create more inclusive programs, services, and workplaces for 2S LGBTQ folks. We are a social enterprise. Typically, this means that we have a fee-for-service model, that we help to create sustainability and provide funds to community resources, but we can talk more about that later. Some contextual understanding, we've had the pleasure and honor of working with nearly 100 different organizations, a few hundred workshops, and working with about 7,000 folks. These numbers haven't changed since, I haven't changed these numbers since about 18 months ago, and we've been doing a lot of work recently. So these are increased, I just haven't had the time to change them on the slide deck. Now, I'm not going to read through all of the different organizations we worked with, but there are a number that I believe you also partner with that we've also worked with. So there's Hospice Simcoe, there's our local library, there's Youth Shelter, there's a lot of institutions that we worked with that I believe you have as well, and a number within our Barrie and Simcoe Muskoka environment. Glad to speak more about who's connected with our program later. I am very mindful that you end your time today at 1:30, so I'm going to aim for about a 1:20 departure of formal content, and then we can have a more informal discussion afterwards. So my agenda for this mini workshop or mini presentation is that we're going to look at why does inclusion matter and why specifically for Simcoe Muskoka. I'll take a look at pronouns. What are they? What are the benefits of using pronouns and sharing them? How to use gender neutral or gender inclusive language, review and resources. So trying to give you some really tangible pieces that we can move forward with following today. So this is going to be a high energy, high level, high overview of these topics, and we should discuss these more later. We're just going to condense down to 20 minutes of time, and I've handpicked what I thought would be relevant for today. Now, as I said, we're going to start with why it matters, and I want to give you a Simcoe Muskoka context for that. And I've got so many statistics, but I'm going to narrow it down here to looking at the experiences of gay and bi men in Simcoe Muskoka and the experiences of our trans community in Simcoe Muskoka. So for gay and bi men, we've got some research that was conducted through the CDRC out in Vancouver, and they took a look at what are the experiences of gay and bi men nationally, and we had worked with them to tease out, well, what's happening in Simcoe Muskoka? How do we differ from the Canadian experience for gay and bi men? We're going to take a look at men who are under 30 years old, and we're going to take a look at rates of isolation and rates of depression. And so we know that gay and bi men under 30, perhaps perceived as one of our most supported demographics. Our youth are supported as a more inclusive place than before, yet we still know that 40% of youth across Canada who are gay and bi experience isolation, a disconnect from their friends, their families, their support systems, a strong circle of support. In our rural environments of Simcoe Muskoka, this number goes up to 50%. So 1 out of 2 gay and bi men who are under 30 are disconnected from their community. This is substantially impacting people's depression and mental health experiences. For example, 1/3 of men across Canada, gay and bi men across Canada, experience depression. But when we look at Simcoe Muskoka, these numbers are up to 58%. It's a significant increase. We need to do better to support the mental health of our queer and bi folks in Simcoe Muskoka. We're having these amazing conversations with service providers and community groups just like yourself, and we need to continue this important work. Now, as I believe Eric also mentioned as a part of my introduction, I'm a business student. That's where my heart lives, as it does here. And when we look at that business component, I've been placing a lot of attention into what are the impacts on someone's ability to be authentically who they are in the workplace. And there are some tremendous benefits to being authentic in the workplace. And there are some tremendous disadvantages when people have to hide who they are. To give you a context to what's happening for gay and bi men, one of our most privileged and supported demographics, we know that less than half of men across Canada feel comfortable to be out in their place of work. We know in our rural environment of Simcoe Muskoka, it's less than 1/3. This is significant. We know that only 1/3, not even 1/3 of men feel comfortable to be out in the workplace. And as from all of my business research, I know that can be quite detrimental. We can talk about that later if you need to, but we need to be creating more inclusive workplaces for queer and trans folk to be in. Societal gay acceptance for this research study was rated at 76%. So over 3/4 of gay and bi men in this research study said, yes, they feel accepted within their community. They know that the community has their support, and they feel that within their region. In Simcoe Muskoka, it was hovering in around that 50% mark. Around the do we, don't we, there was about 1 in 2 that say that they have that acceptance level. This means the message of queer and trans inclusion is not getting across to our local community that we are welcoming, that we are safe, that this is a community that you are a valued member of. And we need to make sure that we increase and be explicit in those messages of welcoming and inclusion. So I said I was going to focus my research down into 2 areas, one gay and bi men, and the other is the trans experiences in Simcoe Muskoka. So let's take a look at that. When there was a research study conducted in 2017, and we're going to take a look at the experiences of trans folk. And if you can imagine our trans community represented by 8 individuals, there are way more than 8, but just for the purpose of illustration for this slide here today, we know that 1 out of 8 folks in Simcoe Muskoka experience physical assault in the streets if you are a trans person. We know that half, 4 out of 8, experience verbal harassment in the streets. We know half, 4 out of 8, feel unsafe living in Simcoe Muskoka, and we know that the majority are unlikely to report these experiences to authority figures. Let's take a moment and reflect what that means when we run community events. If we're at Kempenfest, if we're running the events, if we're running the fun runs, if we're running all of the wonderful events and fundraising activities that we do, we know half of the demographic within our region feels unsafe living here, and half of the demographic is likely to experience verbal harassment. How are we creating a safe space for folks to engage in our community, engage in our functions, engage in our events? Because we know half of our demographic does not feel safe. Those are very bold statements for me to make in a very high energy and quick paced environment. I can take a moment to pause and just to see if there's any reactions or clarity we need from the room. I totally have more time and content. I just want to check on in if anyone needs to share a thought or a feeling or ask a question at this time. So I'll just pause. How was the room? What do we need? Feel free to unmute. I'm also opening the chat up. I'm seeing a couple of thumbs up to indicate people feel good. I see nothing in the chat right now. We can talk more later. Thanks for letting me share some of these a little bit uncomfortable, but very important research, again, as it is within our own backyard of Simcoe Muskoka. This is relevant to our communities. Okay, so other than the doom and gloom, let's talk about what we can do to support our community. While I introduced myself, I shared my pronouns as a part of that introduction. I'd like to take that time and talk about pronouns because I feel it's a very achievable thing that we can address within some of our time remaining, and a very impactful and meaningful experience if we can do this well. So I introduced myself as, hello, my name is Dale, and I use he, him, his pronouns. It was very simple, very quick. On the title slide that it had my name and my phone number and my email address, it also had my pronouns listed as important information to allow you to know how to interact with me. You need to know how to email me, my email's there. You need to know how to call me, my phone number's there. You need to know how to refer to me, my pronouns are there. For clarity, pronouns is a word that replaces a person's name. So for example, you could say Dale is doing a workshop, or you could say he is doing a workshop. The pronoun of he replaces my name of Dale. So in that context, he is doing a workshop, that's his water bottle, whatever the context may be. Some pronoun options can include they, them, theirs, she, her, hers, and he, him, his. There are more than this, but we're just going to focus on those three sets as probably the most common pronouns you'll hear when interacting with folks in our community. But why share pronouns? What's the purpose? Why are we doing it? This may be new to us. What's the point? It's gone unsaid before, so why do we need to do this now? So let's talk about the benefits of sharing pronouns. When you share your pronouns, it sends a message that it normalizes this practice. I'm going to acknowledge that typically it's trans folk who have the burden or the pressure to have to self-disclose their identity when people say, who are you? How do you identify? What pronouns do you use? How do I refer to you? Often those questions are only asked to trans folk, but let's recognize that we all have our own gender identity. We all have a correct or incorrect way in which that we need to be responded to. And if folks want to provide that respect, we just need to know how to interact with each other. And so we all have an identity. We can all share our pronouns. We can take that labor off of just trans folk, and all people can do this. And it can be very simple. I'll give you some examples on how, but it does send a message that you're normalizing this practice. It sends a message that you are willing to do the work to increase the inclusion for gender diverse folks. And it also sends a message that you will respect other people's pronouns if it's important for them. For example, me sharing my pronouns doesn't mean you have to share yours, but if for some reason it was important for someone else to hear that, they know that I understand this. They know that if they want to share their pronouns with me, I'll get it and I'll respect it and I'll do my best to create an inclusive space for them. So it's just about leaving a clue to show that you're inclusive, and this can be a very strong tool to do that. There are some very easy ways to share your pronouns that doesn't have to be through a verbal introduction. For example, you can have it on your staff web pages or on your bios. You could have it on your business cards, on your social media bios on Instagram and Facebook, etc. Name tags or name badges that you wear. Zoom names, which I see a couple of folks, including me, already have that in their Zoom name. It's very helpful because then I know how to interact with somebody when I'm speaking to them over Zoom. Verbal introductions, voicemails also are a good place. Pronoun buttons, some of our youth and some people like to enjoy wearing a pronoun button right on their clothing so people know how to refer to them, similar to that name tag. And email signatures. Some of these are very simple to do. I add my pronouns to my email signature. I don't have to touch it again. It's very simple for me to do that, and it provides value-added context for other folks. I want to recognize that one of the most common questions we get is, how do you use they, them, their to refer to a singular person? It sounds like it's referring to two people. How do you do that? And so I just want to give a couple of guiding thoughts around that. You are already using they, them, there to refer to a singular person, and I will show you in a moment from now. You can use it grammatically correct, and again, I will show you that, but just as a FYI, dictionaries and linguistic institutions have adopted a singular pronoun usage for they, them, there. Language is constantly changing, and it's also made up, so we can change and evolve words as we need to match our human experience, and that's okay, even if it's a bit difficult. Language changes and evolves. We can change and evolve with it, and that's all right. Some examples of using they, them, there as a singular pronoun. So if someone got a phone call, let's just say President Jody got a phone call, and I wanted to know who called you, what did they want? I don't know who's on the other line of that call, so I'm not assuming the identity of that person. Or let's say someone's knocking at the door, can you open it for them? Not knowing who's on the other side of that door. That's their laptop, acknowledging the possession and ownership of that laptop. Someone left their phone on the bus. Did you see which direction they went in? In this context, I don't know who was sitting beside me because I was also on my phone, but I saw that they got up, they left, and they left their phone on the bus. I'm not assuming their identity because I just don't know what it is. Or even when you know someone's name, Ryan is joining us in 10 minutes, they're running late. We can do this work, it is possible, even if it takes a bit of time, we can make it happen. If we are ever unsure about someone's pronouns and identity, I'd like to provide a couple of examples of words that we can try and avoid and consider using instead. I'd actually appreciate your support in this section if we can, so either feel free to unmute or just throw it in the chat and I will see your answers and I can read it out for the room. So my first question is, when is the only time we actually know somebody's identity? Can someone answer that, either unmute or in the chat? When is the only time we actually know someone's identity?
When they tell us.
When they tell us, yes, thank you, Brian. I believe that was you who said that. So when they tell us, every other instance, we are making an assumption. We're not bad people for assuming, but let's recognize sometimes we can guess incorrectly. So it's only when we've been told. Now, mom and dad are fine terms and we should use them, that's okay. But when we don't know someone's family structure, what can we say instead? Again, feel free to either unmute or throw it in the chat.
Parents.
Parents, guardians, caregivers, adults at home. Thank you, Nicole. Yes, many options. Again, mom and dad is fine when we know, but when we don't, can we consider neutral? How about brother or sister? What are some gender neutral options?
Siblings.
Siblings, children, family members, relatives, totally. And son and daughter? I think we already said children, yes. Children, child, some perhaps less common would be offspring or spawn. I don't recommend them, but they're gender neutral. Don't recommend them though. How about hey guys? Now actually, I'll give you a little bit of a story behind this. I was at the agency I work through, the Gilbert Center, we have some programs for trans women, people who are women and sometimes advocate to be seen in their authentic identity and true identity of being a woman. I walked into that room and I said, hey guys, how are you? To a group of people who sometimes fight to be seen as women. And I said, hey guys. Thankfully, no one took it as a gendered offense or as a retaliation, but it made a signal to me that I can choose my words more carefully, especially because we're in an LGBTQ organization delivering a trans woman's program. I can change up my language. So what else could I have said in that moment other than, hey guys?
Folks.
Hey folks. Yeah, there's
Hello,
infinite
all.
options. So let's hear a couple more. Hello all, I think I heard.
Yep.
Peeps, friends.
People, friends, family, y'all, as Brian put in the chat. Totally. I like hey team because I really like that camaraderie that it creates between colleagues. So hey team, but whatever's right. How about a gentleman needs to speak to you? Again, when we don't know the identity, what can be another option?
Someone.
Someone, a person, a client, a patient, a community member, a parent, somebody wants to speak to you. Again, we don't need to assume the identity. We can just consider neutral instead. Now, what about Mr., Mrs., or Miss? A little bit more difficult, perhaps. What follows Mr., Mrs., or Miss?
Have they introduced themselves like that?
Maybe we know their final name or their full name, in which case could we just use their name? So if we don't know it's Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, and all we know is Dale Boyle, and we don't know the identity, I'm okay with my letters and correspondence being addressed to me as Dear Dale or Dear Dale Boyle. I don't need or necessitate a Mr., and I don't need folks to assume that. For me, it happens to be okay, but I also prefer just my name being used. I'm not saying you have to eliminate Mr. and Mrs. and Miss. Just consider it. If you're sending out requests for donations, if you're sending out a request or a correspondence to host an event, if you're not confident in the Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, why potentially make a mistake and have someone be possibly offended by that, and just address them by their name if you happen to know what it is. So a name could work. The other option that does exist, now I'm not suggesting you have to use this with people you're unsure about, I'm just acknowledging this word that you might want to be aware of, or a term. It's mix, MX dot. Now this is a bigger conversation, but this may be more relevant when we look at respecting non-binary folk or people who identify as something other than a man or a woman. We might use mix. Now it's okay if we don't get it, because that doesn't mean we need to be the expert to respect somebody. If someone goes, hi, my name is Mix Boyle, and you'll be like, okay, hi, Mix Boyle, how can I help you? And you just use the language the person asked you to use, and we move on. The final one I have for you today is, can I help you, ma'am? Now, I've learned the hard way that using ma'am, people are offended because it signifies age. And so for my own safety and well-being, what can I do other than say ma'am? So simple, it's not a trick.
Can I help you?
Help you.
Exactly. It's just simply, how can I help you, or can I help you? Recognizing everything on the right-hand side is still kind, caring, and respectful. The ask of you here is to consider using neutral language when you don't confidently know someone's identity. If someone says, hey, these are my mom and dad, or this is my parents, this is my mom, this is my dad, then you can say mom and dad. You can say Mr. and Miss. You can say brother or sister. It's when you know, and when you don't, consider neutral. I know time is running short, 20 minutes goes by super quickly. What I'd like to do is remind the room that using appropriate pronouns is life-saving work. Research shows that high levels of social support and affirmation, including respecting identities and using correct pronouns, can result in a 49% reduction in suicide ideation for trans community. Saying this again, using a person's correct pronouns is suicide prevention. Something that may take a little bit of mental gymnastics for us, or a little bit of practice, or a little bit of coaching with each other. Sure, it's a bit laborious, and I understand that, and I'm not trying to take away the difficulty it may be to change how we interact, but also recognize how life-saving it can be, and just as simply as providing that bare human respect can give people a life-saving chance when we respect people's identities and use the correct pronouns. All right, so let's get into some conversations really quickly. Review and resources. This was 20 minutes. Typically, we do 5 hours. I'm going quickly. I'm very aware of that. Thank you for your, I appreciate you allowing me to go quickly to cover some of this important content. And what you see on the screen here is just some of the topics that we go through in our more standard 5 hours worth of content, where we really dive into these conversations. I don't even have the time to read all of these right now. I'll let them appear on the screen, and then we're going to continue going. All right, there we go. Now for institutions, for example, if you wanted your group to have a organizational assessment done, or the institution you work with want to have an organizational assessment, on our website, we can ask you questions in 6 different categories of institutional inclusion. We'll give you a report card. We'll tell you how well you're doing. We'll give you our best practice document, and we'll really coach you along around how to create a more inclusive institution beyond a one-time staff training. So we have some resources available. We got posters and stickers. We can talk about that later. We can do live in-person workshops. We can do virtual Zoom workshops. We also have self-guided at your own pace workshops, and all of them can create a certificate to acknowledge your time in that process. We can talk about it later. And to acknowledge very important local programming, high level, is that the Gilbert Center has a variety of 2S LGBTQ programs. You can check them out at gilbertcenter.ca. We have an older adults program, which provides the social and support opportunities, phone call check-ins. We have a Two-Spirit aspect to this program to reach out to our older adult Indigenous Two-Spirit community and educational workshops. We have programs for family and youth, including roughly about 135 youth right now actively involved in our online youth group. We also have parenting workshops for parents of queer and trans kids to learn how to be supportive parents. And then finally, we have some programming for gay and bi men, including online outreach, sexual health education, community connection, and more. I am exactly at 1:20, so just a quick thank you. I appreciate your time. It's been a fun 20 minutes, and I'm sticking around at minimum until 1:30, and however long else you need me to stick around for informal conversations. Thank you, Bass, for coordinating. Thank you, Eric, for introducing. Thank you, President Jody, for hosting and bringing me in and doing all of that work, and everyone else who was a part of being here today. And thank you for listening and engaging and being a part of this. So thank you. I'll stop sharing my screen and we can engage in conversations.
And Dale, I'm just going to jump in. We will thank you in a moment, but we will take some questions. And since I have the microphone, I'm going to ask two, if I may. The first question I have is, what does 2S represent? That's a new term to me. And the second question I have, you use the term queer.
Yeah.
I would have thought that was an offensive term. So can you elaborate on both of those for us, please?
Sure, I can totally do that. So I'm just going to throw in the chat something quickly that will be good for some extra homework or personal learning, which is the Two-Spirit Dictionary, We Matter. And I would encourage to check out that website. But just as a quick answer to it, the term Two-Spirit represents an umbrella term for folks who have Indigenous teachings on what, well, it's a variety of teachings, and it could represent the role people play in community. It could represent experiences of connection to spirituality. It could represent connections on how we would Westernly describe gender identity and sexual orientation. The term Two-Spirit was proposed at a 1990 Winnipeg Sexual Health Conference, and it's a translation from the Ojibwe term Nij Madadawag. Long and short, umbrella term, it can mean many things depending on Indigenous teachings. It is specifically meant for Indigenous folk. I, as a settler and a white person who does not have any knowledge of an Indigenous background, cannot use Two-Spirit as an appropriate term. As a very quick answer, I'll encourage to check out more at that link I provided or sending us emails later. I have used the word queer. As you indicated, President Jody, it was often very negatively used. I would recommend to use the language someone wants you to use. I'm not granting people the permission to go and call folks queer just because I used it here. That's not what we're doing, but the word has evolved and changed. For example, our youth demographic has reclaimed the word to strip it of its negativity, therefore removing some of its negative power it holds over people, and has repurposed it to now represent the community overall, or representing an experience of a sexual orientation that isn't so clearly defined by, let's say, gay, lesbian, bi, or otherwise. So it might, again, represent a variety of identities and experiences, but we're going to use whatever language someone's comfortable or asking us to use. We do not use queer in our older adults program because of its negative history, but we do use queer in our youth program because they like and prefer that term. Quick answers, I hope that helps.
Yes, it did. Thank you. And I may be a little late to introduce the raise your hand with Zoom folks, but do we have other questions here? Can we do it, Jeff?
Jonathan has hand raised.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, President Jody. Thanks, Dale. Appreciate the presentation. My reaction to those stats that you shared about Simcoe Muskoka were pretty similar to Brian's. Like that's pretty embarrassing. So I was hoping you could maybe drill down a little bit further on that. If that's a specific, age demographic you were referencing earlier, under 30, if that carried forward, or if there's any insights there in terms of what maybe we should be aware of. I'm also conscious as the fact that I've got young kids growing up, and it seems as though, and I hope this is the case, it's far more open discussion in sort of the current system than it was when I was growing up. And you know, I'm just curious to know if there's sort of a segment that feels that way more so, and if that's the case, should we be aware of that?
Yeah, great questions. Thank you for acknowledging. I'm glad to talk about them a little bit more. I'm also adding in 2 links to the chat. I see there's a lot happening in the chat, and my apologies not being able to read them all right now. The first link I just sent in on the resources and research, that references the research that I spoke to today and more. So you can always read more in depth from what we're able to have right now. And then the helpful resources has a lot of great resources as well that are helpful to support queer and trans kids. For example, there's a resource on families in transition to support parents in being their most inclusive self for trans kids. So the research that I shared, one of them was from 2017 at the Trans Research, and the other one, I forget the exact year, was a couple years before then. They've updated the research from a national level. We just haven't had the time and ability to tease out the local info. But essentially what we've been seeing in follow-up researches since that date is that there hasn't been significant variance or changes. There's also not something weird happening in Simcoe Muskoka. We see these increases happening in rural settings. Is there a more targeted question? Sorry, Jonathan, is there a more targeted question I could respond to rather than just acknowledging it broadly? My mind wandered a bit there.
Yeah, sorry, in context for you. So, you know, I've got lots of, I'll say friends in the community is the way that I'll phrase it. And I'm very conscious of that. Who I know and who I'm friends with is not the entire world. So those stats were alarming to me because it's very different than what my experience has been. So if there's something that, you know, I'm certainly not, you know, as in tune with, or there's a particular subsegment of that that's skewing the statistic higher, would love to know so that, you know, can be aware to support.
Right.
So I guess to be specific, is it more kids? Is it more, you know, adults, you know, individuals that are over 50, or is it just a broad spectrum that over 70% of, you know, folks that are part of the community in Simcoe Muskoka feel that way?
Thank you for that clarity. So I believe both research studies were 18 plus. So the one about gay and bi men under 30, it would have been within that age range of roughly the 18 to 30. And then for the trans Simcoe Muskoka research, that would have been 18 plus, and it wasn't broken down per a couple decade age ranges or older adults exclusively. It was just representing the community as a whole. So it's taking more of that average experience. And so I do recognize that older adults will have a different experience than youth would versus someone in their 30s and 40s. So it is more of a broad net in that research. We do have other research in different slide decks that I can't bring up right now due to time that speak to specifically youth experiences, such as 40% of youth who are homeless are LGBTQ because of lack of parental support. There's still a lot happening. We can dive into it. I don't know if I could say that one demographic is having a better experience than another. There's definitely a lot of hard-hitting experiences throughout. But that doesn't mean that it's always deficit-based. I also see a lot of strength and resiliency in community support and community services that also happen. Those stats at the beginning were just to try and ground us in what's currently happening in our region. It's not a full picture of the resiliency that also occurs within community. So it's a bit biased, and I do recognize that. Short time, short information.
Thank you, Dale. And I'm just going to step in here because as we chatted on the phone, 1:30 staring me in the face. So I'm going to ask Sebastian if he would step up and thank you on behalf of the club, please.
Dale, I really want to thank you on behalf of everybody. You've highlighted a couple of really salient statistics that we need to keep in mind moving forward. And you really helped bring to light that it doesn't take an awful lot on those who are comfortable in the here and now to move our society forward and our language forward to make it more inclusive. I think if we think back to the 50s to 60s where I grew up, how our language has evolved since then, I don't think we can stop. I don't think we can sit back and say, okay, I'm here now, we're good. We have to keep stretching our own bias and be aware of our bias. And I think your presentation was excellent, and I hope it engenders what we want good presentations to do. So on behalf of the club, thank you very much. Really interesting.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for that, Sebastian. And Dale, I'd like to echo those comments and thank you for sharing some disturbing statistics and helping us with some understanding and awareness of a topic that is generally something people don't talk about. So thank you for doing that. And as we talked, Rotary has an initiative that we've been working on for many years to eradicate polio. And I have a certificate with your name on it, and a donation will be made to our Rotary International efforts to eradicate that on behalf of your presentation today. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I think Dale's willing to stick around for a few minutes here if there are some more questions, but I'm going to wrap things up. Great meeting today. Lots of energy, lots of fun, lots of positiveness. A reminder, we are together next week at the Garden, which is phenomenal. And today's parting words: if you don't like who I am or what I am doing with my life, that's all right. I am not living for you. I am living for myself. With nothing further, for the good of Rotary today, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. And Dale, if you're still there, folks, if you have some questions, I think Dale's got a few minutes to spare with us. Is there anybody else? Unmute, throw it in the chat, whatever. I'm going to let control go. Thank you.